The evening light washes over the vineyard in amber waves, turning the wedding reception into a scene from a storybook. Everyone smiles, everyone except Seth. My husband's hand tightens around mine as he leans close, his mouth near my ear. "Harper, we need to leave tonight." The champagne glass trembles in my fingers. His words carry a weight that doesn't belong in this perfect Oregon sunset, with string lights twinkling above the rows of grapevines where my brother Grant just said his vows. "What are you talking about?" I whisper, forcing a smile as the best man finishes his toast. Seth's eyes never leave the head table. "Your brother's bride. She's using 2 different phones, 2 different accents depending on who she's talking to." "That's ridiculous," I say, but my voice lacks conviction. "I heard her on the terrace earlier speaking with a Boston accent. 10 minutes later, she was telling your father about her Swiss boarding school with a European lilt." He slides his phone across the table. "And look at these." I stare at screenshots of newspaper clippings. 2 different stories of how Grant and Delaney meet, Tone mentioning a charity gala in New York, another describing a chance encounter at a coffee shop in Seattle. My stomach knots as I look up at my brother. His face glows with happiness as he gazes at his bride. The first time Grant introduced Delaney, I was struck by her impeccable preparation. She knew all our family stories, our birthdays, even my mother's favorite flowers. She gave me a vintage pearl charm as a welcome gift, calling me the sister I always wanted. The gesture had warmed my heart instantly. Just yesterday, I watched my father Rourke enthusiastically discussing a $45 million investment with Delaney's father Sterling. Their heads bent together over spreadsheets, my father more animated than I'd seen him in years. And at the rehearsal dinner, Delaney smoothly navigated conversations in English, French, and Italian, charming every guest at our table. My mother couldn't stop singing her praises. "You're being paranoid," I tell Seth, but something cold spreads through my chest. Delaney is charming and brilliant. Grant is happier than I've ever seen him. Seth takes a deep breath. "She told your mother she was raised in Switzerland, but told your father Boston. Her company history doesn't check out. The foundation she claims to run has no registration records." I open my mouth to defend her again, but my words die as I remember something from this morning. Standing in the rose garden, I overheard Delaney on the phone. Her voice had changed completely hard, threatening. "If it's not done by Monday, this all falls apart. Just get it done." When she turned and saw me, her face transformed instantly into the warm, loving woman my brother adored. "Grant has always been the optimist," I murmur, watching my younger brother laugh at something Delaney whispers. "He sees the best in everyone. Your father's aerospace fund is worth, what, $320 million? If he invests with Sterling's scheme." I close my eyes briefly. "You think this is a con?" "I think we need to be certain before they leave for their honeymoon and your father transfers that money." My brother's face is radiant across the reception. The fairy lights catch in Delaney's hair as she leans to kiss him. "I've spent my life protecting Grant from bullies in elementary school, from his own too trusting nature in business. But this? Questioning his wife on their wedding day? If we're wrong, we'll destroy his perfect weekend," I say. "He'll never forgive us." Seth covers my hand with his. "And if we're right?" I watch Sterling pat my father's shoulder, both men laughing. Delaney's eyes flick toward them, calculating. "We need proof," I say finally, the words tasting bitter against the sweet champagne. "Real proof before we say anything." My phone buzzes with a text from Grant. "Best day ever. Thank you for everything, sis." I look up at my brother's smiling face, and something inside me hardens with resolve. If someone is trying to hurt my family, they've made a terrible mistake. Next day, the family dinner stretches late into the evening, wine glasses refilled as laughter echoes through the Vineyard Lodge's wood-paneled dining room. I can't focus on the conversation, my attention locked on Delaney across the table. Her diamond earrings catch the light as she leans toward my father. "Rourke, would you mind if I borrowed your laptop? I'd love to project those cash flow charts for everyone." Her voice carries that practiced warmth that charmed us all initially. My father beams. "Of course. It's in my briefcase by the door." I watch as she retrieves the sleek silver laptop, setting it up on the sideboard. My stomach tightens when her manicured fingers move with practiced efficiency along the edge of the computer. Something small and black barely visible attaches beneath the USB port. My heart hammers against my ribs. Seth's hand finds mine under the table, squeezing once. He's noticed too. "What is that?" I whisper when Delaney returns to her seat. "Keylogger," he murmurs, lips barely moving. Records everything: typed passwords, account numbers, security codes. The realization hits me like a physical blow. This isn't just about fooling Grant into marriage. They're targeting our family's wealth, the aerospace fund my father spent 30 years building. Later in the lodge library, Seth and I claim a quiet corner while the celebration continues in the main room. The old leather chairs shield us from view as I watch Delaney command attention with stories of her time in the Swiss Alps. Across the room, Sterling has pulled my father aside, their heads bent together in conversation. I checked Cornell's alumni database, Seth says, his voice low. No record of Delaney Prescott graduating or attending at all. Maybe she used another name? I suggest, but the hope in my voice sounds hollow even to me. Sterling's company doesn't exist either. No business registration, no tax records, no industry presence. He shows me his phone screen. And have you noticed only 3 relatives showed up for their side of the wedding? No childhood friends, no photos from her youth in any of the displays. I watch my brother refill Delaney's champagne glass, his face glowing with adoration. Dad's planning to transfer millions to Sterling's vertical launch drone venture. He mentioned it this morning, said it could be the most significant investment of his career. If they get the keylogger data, they could access every account Rourke logs into. Seth rubs his temples. These aren't amateur con artists, Harper. They're professionals. They could drain accounts, transfer funds, empty investment portfolios all before anyone notices something's wrong. The crystal chandelier above us seems to dim as I process his words. The weight of responsibility settles on my shoulders, heavy and cold. Grant will be devastated either way, I say, watching my brother across the room. His arm rests comfortably around Delaney's waist. If we're right about this, his heart gets broken. If we're wrong and make accusations, I can't finish the sentence. There's no easy path forward, Seth agrees. His phone buzzes. He checks it, then turns the screen toward me. Email from Quentin. He ran those background checks I asked for. The message contains side-by-side photos of Delaney with different hair colors, different names. Valeria Camden in Boston, 2021. Danielle Price in Seattle, 2023. Same woman, Seth says unnecessarily. 3 different identities in 4 years. So we were right. The words taste bitter. From across the room, I watch my father enthusiastically sharing our family's financial details with Sterling, his notebook open, finger tracing over figures. I've never seen him so animated about a business venture before, so trusting. As I watched my father enthusiastically sharing our family's financial details with Sterling, I wondered, should we confront them immediately with what little evidence we had, or quietly gather more proof first? Would you risk being wrong and ruining your brother's wedding? Or wait and potentially let a fraud take root in your family? The music from the reception drifts through the open windows, the band playing my parents' favorite song from 1978. My mother joins my father and Sterling, her hand resting on Rourke's shoulder. All these years, they've protected us. Now it's our turn. We need to move carefully, I tell Seth, straightening my spine, but we need to move now. Behind us, the door to the library opens. I turn to see Delaney walking toward us, lips curved in that perfect smile that now feels like the most dangerous weapon in the room. A day later, after calculating what to do and considering possibilities, the bonfire crackles against the darkening sky, casting long shadows across the vineyard's grassy courtyard. I watch Delaney raise her champagne flute, her smile radiant in the firelight as she addresses our gathered family. Sterling has wonderful news, she announces, her voice carrying across the intimate gathering. He's transferring the first phase funds Monday morning. The vertical launch project begins next week. My father claps with boyish enthusiasm, his weathered face alight with excitement. I'll have the escrow accounts ready first thing Monday. $25 million to start, just as we discussed. My stomach drops. $25 million. I glance at Seth, whose jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. Grant wraps his arm around Delaney's waist, beaming with pride. I have a surprise too, he announces, his voice carrying that familiar, eager tone I've heard since childhood whenever he had a secret. I signed paperwork giving Delaney access to my trust fund. A wedding gift so we can start our life together without any barriers between us. The champagne turns sour in my mouth. Seth's hand finds mine under the table, squeezing tight enough that I feel his wedding band press into my skin. Later that night, I stumble upon Sterling during what he calls the grand tour of my family home. I round the corner to my father's office just as Sterling slips his phone into his pocket. Something in his casual movement raises the hair on my neck. "Just admiring Rourke's aviation awards," he explains smoothly. "Quite the accomplished family." But I'd seen the flash of his camera app, the quick angle of his phone toward my father's desk. The desk where Rourke keeps his password notebook because no hacker would look for an actual book. Sleep refuses to come that night. I lie awake beside Seth, my mind racing through every interaction with Delaney since Grant introduced her 6 months ago, her perfect recall of family stories. Her immediate connection with my mother, the way she steered conversations toward my father's business ventures within minutes of meeting him. What if we're wrong? I whisper into the darkness. What if she really loves him? Seth rolls toward me, his eyes reflecting moonlight from the window. And if we're right, can you live with yourself if they drain your family dry? The weight of responsibility presses against my chest, my brother's heart or my family's security. The choice feels impossible. Morning brings clarity and purpose. Seth and I begin documenting everything: the inconsistencies in Delaney's background, Sterling's non-existent business credentials, the keylogger now secured in a plastic bag in my toiletry case. We photograph the device, timestamp our notes, create a timeline of suspicious behaviors. The work feels both terrible and necessary, like preparing for a funeral while the person still lives. I call Jen around noon, slipping away to the old groundskeeper's cottage where cellular reception is spotty at best. The connection crackles as I explain our suspicions. "Send me photos of the device," she says, her voice tight with concern. "Thank God you caught this. I've seen families lose everything this way." Her validation washes over me like cool water. We aren't paranoid. We aren't imagining things. The sun begins its descent behind the coastal mountains when I find Grant alone among the vineyard rows. He inspects the grapes with practiced care, a habit from childhood summers working the family land. "We need to talk," I say, joining him between the leafy vines. His expression hardens. "If this is about Delaney." "It is. You've never liked anyone I've dated." His voice carries an edge I rarely hear. "Can't you just be happy for me this once?" The accusation stings, partly because there's truth in it. I've always been protective, skeptical of those who get close to my little brother. But this is different. "I want to be happy for you more than anything," I say, choosing each word carefully. "But I need you to listen carefully." I tell him everything: the conflicting stories, the keylogger, Sterling photographing our father's desk. With each piece of evidence, I watch Grant's expression shift from anger to concern, then to something more painful. "She couldn't access my accounts without my signature," he says, but his voice lacks conviction. "The paperwork you signed," I remind him gently. "The wedding gift. When did she ask for that?" The color drains from his face. "Yesterday morning. She said it would make managing our finances easier while we're honeymooning in Thailand." "Thailand? You told everyone Bali." Grant looks as though I've slapped him. "She changed it last week. Said she found a better villa. A villa where no one would expect to find them. Where my family wouldn't think to look when the accounts emptied on Monday morning." Seth makes the call to the Oregon FBI resident agency while I phone Jen again, forwarding the keylogger photos and documentation. The contrast strikes me as surreal wedding guests laughing around the bonfire, toasting to new beginnings, while our small team works frantically to prevent disaster. "The evidence is compelling," the FBI agent tells Seth. "We can have someone there tomorrow morning. By sunset, we have a plan. Grant will maintain normalcy while we secure copies of all evidence. Seth will create a medical emergency requiring our immediate departure, giving us freedom to move without suspicion." I stand at the edge of the gathering, watching Delaney whisper urgently to Sterling across the bonfire. Their faces glow orange in the flames, beautiful and terrible. Her eyes flick toward my father, calculating something. Sterling checks his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. Tomorrow can't come soon enough. Tomorrow, the first phase of the plan starts. Medical emergency. Seth repeats into his phone, his voice tightly controlled as we rush toward our car. Yes, we need to get to Portland immediately. Behind us, the wedding reception continues in full swing. Fairy lights illuminating the vineyard rows like a scene from a storybook that's about to turn dark. I clutch my purse containing the keylogger we carefully removed from my father's laptop, wrapped in a handkerchief to preserve fingerprints. The timestamps. I remind Seth as he slides behind the wheel. We'd spent 30 minutes methodically documenting everything: screenshots of the contradictory stories about how Grant and Delaney met, photos of the keylogger in place, recordings of Delaney speaking with different accents. Already uploaded to the cloud with exact dates and GPS coordinates. Seth says, starting the engine. Quentin sent over the complete identity report. 3 different names in 4 years, Harper. She's done this before. The drive to the Oregon State Police office takes 40 minutes. Every mile increases my determination while diminishing my doubt. Detective Marcia Holloway listens without interruption as we lay out our evidence. When we finish, she leans forward, eyes sharp with recognition. This fits a pattern we've been tracking, she says, tapping her pen against the table. The wedding day rush, the quick investment opportunity, the switching phones and accents. You did right coming in now instead of waiting. My phone buzzes. Delaney's name appears on the screen. Detective Holloway's eyebrows rise. May I? She slides a recording device toward me. I answer on speaker. Hello? Harper? Is everything okay with Seth? Delaney's voice drips with concern, but there's something calculated in the pauses. Grant and I are so worried. Which hospital did you go to? Providence in Portland. I lie smoothly. They're running tests. What happened exactly? And when will you be back? The questions come too quickly, fishing for information. After I hang up, Detective Holloway presses a button on her recorder. That's her. Voice pattern matches a suspect in 3 similar cases in Washington and California. She turns to her computer. Different names, same Mo. I grip the edge of the table. You've been looking for her? For 2 years. The Bureau calls them romance bandits. They target wealthy families through the most emotionally vulnerable member, usually during major life events when everyone's guard is down. As the detective asks if we want to wait for the FBI or confront Delaney ourselves with police backup, I wonder, would immediate action protect my family's assets? Or would a carefully staged intervention reveal the full scope of her operation? My phone lights up with a text from Jen. Keylogger analyzed. Program was accessing banking portals, Rorke's investment accounts, and Grant's trust fund details. Sending full forensic report now. I forward it directly to Detective Holloway, whose expression hardens as she reads. This gives us what we need, she says, picking up her desk phone. Digital evidence of attempted unauthorized access to financial accounts. While she speaks rapidly into the phone, Seth squeezes my hand. Your mother called while you were texting, Jen. She's secured all the important documents and frozen the secondary accounts without letting on. Smart woman, Detective Holloway says, hanging up. We've got a warrant for the keylogger and fraudulent access device under state law. That's enough to bring her in while the feds build their case. My phone buzzes with a text from Grant. Delaney is packing our wedding gifts into her car. Says she's taking them to the hotel for safekeeping. Seems weird. Before I can respond, another message arrives. Sterling just told Dad he needs to leave early tomorrow for a critical business meeting in Seattle. Says they should finalize everything tonight. They're preparing to run. I show the messages to Detective Holloway, who nods grimly. They're accelerating their timeline. Common when they sense something's off. She checks her watch. We'll have everything in place by tomorrow evening. Officers will be stationed nearby, but invisible until we need them. Will that be soon enough? I ask, remembering my father's excitement about the investment. Your mother's actions with the accounts have bought us time. And now, she says, sliding a document across the table, we have the advantage of surprise. The paper contains a storage unit address and inventory. Items listed include passports under 3 different names, credit card manufacturing equipment, and detailed dossiers on 5 wealthy families, including ours. Looking at the evidence spread across the detective's desk, I feel a strange calm settle over me. The wedding day I'd imagined for my brother has unraveled into something unrecognizable, but in its place stands the possibility of protection, of preventing a wound that would cut far deeper than today's painful truth. Let's end this, I say, reaching for the phone to call Grant. The morning sun filters through the curtains of the lodge as Delaney corners me in the breakfast nook, her smile gleaming with artificial brightness. She loops her arm through mine, a gesture that once seemed sisterly, but now feels like a viper coiling around its prey. Harper, darling, Sterling, and I were just discussing the timeline. Her voice drops to a conspiratorial whisper. We're thinking we should accelerate things a bit. Strike while the iron is hot. I keep my face neutral despite the rage boiling beneath my skin. Accelerate what exactly? Sterling materializes beside us, checking his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. The investment opportunity. Markets wait for no man, as they say. His laugh lands flat, desperate. "Rourke," Delaney calls across the room to my father. "Tell Harper about our morning plans." Dad looks up from his coffee, his expression brightening. "We're thinking of heading to the bank first thing tomorrow. Make it official." He beams. A family celebration of sorts. Grant enters, and Delaney practically glides to him, wrapping herself around him with such theatrical affection that I wonder how I never noticed its falsity before. Her eyes, though, dart constantly to Sterling, who keeps tapping his phone and glancing toward the exit. "Sounds rushed," I say carefully. "Why not stick to the original timeline?" Delaney's fingers tighten on Grant's arm. "Well, there's a competitive bidding situation developing. Right, Sterling?" "Absolutely." Sterling nods too quickly. "Another investor group from Dubai. We need to secure our position." Seth catches my eye from across the room and gives a subtle nod. The stage is set. Before we discuss banking, I say, loud enough for everyone to hear, there's something we need to address. The room quiets. I move to the center table where my laptop waits, already open. "Dad, remember when Delaney borrowed your laptop Friday night to project those cash flow charts?" I turn the screen toward them all. "She installed this." On screen is an enlarged photograph of the keylogger device we removed from my father's computer, alongside Quentin's detailed report. "A keylogger," Seth explains, standing beside me. "It records every keystroke, including passwords, account numbers, security questions." Delaney's face freezes for just a moment before she laughs. "That's a USB drive, Harper, for the presentation." "No," I say firmly, advancing to the next slide. "It's a sophisticated data harvesting device. And according to our cybersecurity expert, it transmitted data to an IP address associated with 3 prior fraud cases." Sterling steps forward. "This is preposterous. Rourke, surely you don't believe." "We have more," I interrupt, revealing Quentin's identity report showing Delaney's multiple aliases and fraud patterns across 3 states. Delaney Shaw doesn't exist. Neither does Delaney Kessler, or Valeria Romerol identities you've used before. Delaney's expression doesn't change, but her eyes harden to flint. "This is absurd. Grant, they're trying to come between us." Grant says nothing, his face ashen. "There's a misunderstanding," Delaney insists, her voice honey-sweet again. I meet her gaze directly. The storage unit contents explain everything. Her face blanches. The first genuine reaction I've seen. "Storage unit?" my father asks. "Unit 42B at Secure Space Storage on Highway 99, I say. Rented under the name Valeria Romero, but paid for with a credit card linked to a Delaney Kessler. Inside are detailed dossiers on our family and 4 others across the Pacific Northwest. All wealthy, all with significant investment capital." We move to the lodge library at my suggestion. The detective waits in the adjacent room, just as planned. The family gathers in a semicircle, me parents on the leather sofa, Seth and I standing, Grant and Delaney across from us. Sterling hovers near the garden door, his earlier confidence evaporating. "I don't understand," my mother says. "Delaney, is this true?" Delaney's eyes dart around the room. "Of course not. This is just Harper being jealous. She's always been overprotective of Grant." She reaches for his hand. "Tell them, darling." Grant looks at her, really looks at her, maybe for the first time. Then, with deliberate slowness, he removes his wedding ring and places it on the table between them. The soft clink of metal against wood echoes through the silent room. "No," he says quietly. Delaney's mask slips. Her shoulders straighten, chin lifting. The transformation is startling, like watching someone shed their skin. "Think carefully about what you're doing," she says, her voice now clipped, accent gone. "No one will believe you over me. I have photographs, recordings. I can ruin your family's reputation with one phone call." My father starts to rise, but my mother places a hand on his arm. "You've misjudged us," I tell Delaney. "We believe in each other. Always." As if on cue, the detective and 2 state troopers enter from the adjacent room. Delaney's expression shifts from anger to calculation in an instant. "Sterling Mason?" The detective holds up a warrant. "We have questions about fraudulent access devices and identity theft." Sterling bolts for the garden door but crashes into a waiting officer. The handcuffs click with finality. Delaney switches tactics instantly, her face crumpling into distress. "Grant, darling, this is all a misunderstanding." Tears fill her eyes on command. "I can explain everything." Grant stands taller than I've ever seen him. "I believe my family," he says. "I always will." As the officers read Delaney her rights, I notice my mother quietly collecting family photos from the mantel, the real memories this woman tried to infiltrate. My father wraps an arm around Grant's shoulders, both men looking older than they did 3 days ago. Later, I stand at the window watching the troopers escort Delaney to the waiting cruiser. Her posture remains regal, unbroken. She catches me watching and holds my gaze for a moment before ducking into the car. The detective approaches, flipping through notes. "The FBI just called. They found dossiers on 5 wealthy families in that storage unit. Professional work background checks, financial portfolios, psychological profiles." He closes his notebook. "Your family got lucky." I look back at Grant sitting alone in the center of the room, staring at the ring on the table. The question of how he'll recover from this betrayal hangs in the air like smoke. The cruiser pulls away, carrying with it the woman who nearly destroyed us all. But the damage is already done. The June sunlight filters through Grant's kitchen windows as I arrange a platter of his favorite cheeses. 9 months have passed since that wedding day when our world splintered, then slowly reformed into something stronger. "Need any help?" Dad appears at my elbow, looking years younger despite everything. Gone is the trusting businessman who nearly lost millions. In his place stands a man with clear eyes and a new full-time chief information security officer on his payroll. "Just finishing up." I smile, noting how he keeps his phone in a specialized blocking case, new one of many changes since Delaney, or rather Valeria, entered and exited our lives. Mom carries in a pitcher of lemonade, her wedding ring catching the light. The others just pulled up. Our gatherings have shifted smaller, more intimate, with a deeper appreciation for the people who truly belong at our table. My consulting business helping family enterprises identify potential fraud has taken off faster than I anticipated. Silver linings from storm clouds. Grant emerges from his bedroom looking rested in his favorite blue shirt. This Seattle home is nothing like the vineyard where he once exchanged vows with a stranger, but it suits him. The space feels honest, large windows, simple furniture, nothing hidden. "You know what's weird?" he says, adjusting a framed photo of us as kids. "I don't regret loving her. I regret ignoring the warnings." My throat tightens. "Grant." "No, listen." He smiles, the sadness in his eyes now mingled with wisdom. "I don't regret loving fully. I regret not trusting myself when something felt off. There's a difference." The doorbell rings before I can respond. Seth enters first, followed by Jen, whose cybersecurity expertise proved invaluable, and Quentin, who tracked down the storage unit that became the final nail in Valeria's coffin. We settle around Grant's oak dining table, glasses raised. Seth clears his throat, to the quiet voices of concern that we learn to hear. "And to those who speak them," Grant adds, his gaze moving across each face, "even when it's the last thing we want to hear." Later, while Seth helps Grant with dessert, my phone buzzes with an email from the federal prosecutor. I step onto the balcony to read it privately. Federal grand jury has returned a 17-count indictment against Valeria Marchenko for wire fraud across 6 states. Your family's evidence was instrumental. I exhale slowly, watching boats dot the distant sound. The woman we knew as Delaney had built an elaborate house of cards, targeting wealthy families with surgical precision. We weren't the first, but we were the last. "Good news?" Seth asks, joining me with a coffee mug in hand. Indictment came through. I show him the email, remembering how yesterday I signed the evidence transfer forms, returning the pearl charm she'd given me to the FBI's evidence locker. Such a small thing to symbolize so much deception. Inside, I hear Grant laugh at something Quentin says. He's dating again carefully, with boundaries, and yes, with gentle family involvement that he now welcomes rather than resists. As I watched the evidence being cataloged for trial, I wondered if the hardest part of betrayal is the act itself, or the doubt it plants in us afterward. How do you rebuild trust in others and in your own judgment after someone you welcomed into your family proves to be something else entirely? Perhaps the answer lies in the scene before me. A family changed but unbroken, listening more carefully to each other, and building something more resilient from the ruins of what was lost.